Advisory Commission. I'd like to welcome everybody. Um, do we want to do a very quick round of introductions?
That sounds great.
Karen, do you want to go ahead or?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Odont, and I was appointed to the commission in October. I'm a longtime Arlington resident, and in my professional career at the State Department, I worked in accessibility and inclusion for about 20 years. So happy to be here.
All right. Happy to have you. So we have Anna and Brian who would like to go next. Oh, hello, Emma. Welcome.
All right, my name is Anna Maynard. I'm staff with the Human Rights Office, and I'm subbing in for Courtney tonight.
Thank you very much.
And I'll go next. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Shelton. I'm the active transportation planner in the Department of Environmental Services in Arlington County.
All right, Emma, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, thank you for having me as a guest today. I just had previously served on a disability advisory council when I lived in St. Paul, Minnesota, and thought I would check out the Arlington group now that I live here. So thank you.
All right, it looks like we don't have much of a crowd tonight, unfortunately, but welcome, and we're glad to have you, and thank you very much for your interest.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody for public comment? Yes, if Emma doesn't have any, then I don't think we have anyone, considering that we don't have very many people. So the first thing that I have on the agenda is Brian Shelton with a presentation on the 12th Street South Shared Streets Pilot Project. Goodness.
It's quite a lot to say. What I'll be
like
doing
a tongue
tonight,
twister out of it. Sure,
you get used to it. It's been about a year now.
All right,
so
in a year I'll be able to pronounce it correctly.
It reads off like a long acronym. What I'll be doing tonight, instead of just focusing on 12th Street South, I'll give you an overview of the 3 shared street pilot projects that we have in the county. Just give me 1 second here and I'll pull up the slide deck I have for tonight. Okay. We can skip through this first slide here, and I'll begin with the outline. What I want to do is take this time to give you an update on this project. The last time I came before the DAC, I was sharing with you a concept of our shared street pilot project. At that time, we didn't have any designs. We just had our street locations picked out, and we had a general idea of what it was that we wanted this project to achieve. Since then, we've been working with our engineers, and we've had 1 round of public engagement to receive comment on the ideas, but then also develop these ideas into projects. And those projects will be going before a funding hearing at the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission on June 20th, so exactly a month from now. That meeting will also be public. I also want to share with you all the public feedback that we had received from our first round of public engagement. Share with you all the shared street designs. It'll be a quick overview of what those designs are for the 3 locations that we picked. I'll share with you the slideshow. That way you'll have all the information in front of you. Just want to keep it a little brief for tonight. And then at the end, an opportunity for questions, and then links out to our public engagement websites. So where we are in the project right now is that we are sharing our preliminary designs and we're asking for feedback. We're asking you, the Disability Advisory Commission, for feedback, the Bicycle Advisory Commission, and the Pedestrian Advisory, Committee. In addition to that, our public engagement period is currently live. We'll be ending public engagement, I believe, next week, so at the end of May. After this round of public engagement, we'll take everything that we've heard from everybody. We'll go back to our engineers, make sure that we have all of our bases covered, and then we will proceed to the funding hearing on June 10th. And then we will be implementing the project sometime in the late summer or early fall. And then at that point of implementation, we'll begin our monitoring, evaluating, and gathering feedback on the pilot project locations for 1 year. And so again, I just want to provide you with a background of what these shared streets are and why we're pursuing shared streets in the county. So many locations in the county, they do lack a complete sidewalk. And for many reasons. The reason that we're focusing on for tonight is that the width of the county-owned right-of-way is set, and the elements of the street that need to fit within that space, such as street trees, utility poles, space for travel lanes, and on-street parking, all need to be balanced, since they're all important features of a neighborhood street. Sometimes we run into issues of topography, like on Lynn Street, and it would make it expensive and sometimes too hard to provide a sidewalk, especially within the budget that we have within the Neighborhood Complete Streets program. As a result, the space from the curb to curb is shared between people traveling by motor vehicles, on foot, by bicycles, and any other wheeled device, really. We've seen it all. And the street really needs to be wide enough also to allow for emergency services to perform their important duties. And oftentimes that gets in the way of us being able to construct a sidewalk. But in the county, we have many locations where we have streets just like this. They're called yield streets. And people are already walking in the street. They're already biking in the street. They're already rolling in the street. And so what we're trying to do is normalize that behavior and making improvements to driver behavior at the same time to make those pedestrians and bicyclists, people rolling, what have you, down the middle of the street, trying to make them, feel safe. We do have a provision in the master transportation plan in the streets element, and that's what we're using for this project right now, and that is shared streets. Shared streets are defined as a local street where the needs of motor vehicles are generally secondary to the needs of pedestrians, bicyclists, and other roadway users. And on to the next slide. So we had our first round of public engagement. It began November 6th and it ended December 4th. We added a couple of additional weeks to the public engagement cycle just to give people that extra opportunity to respond to what it was that we had presented. These are new to the county, not necessarily new to the country, but they are new to the county and something that we want to give people the opportunity to respond to. The data that was collected by staff included vehicle volumes, speed, parking rates, and observational data. And that was enhanced and validated by the unique experiences that many of you all and many of our residents shared through the feedback form and the experience mapping tool, which was online. All in all, we had 157 people who responded to our forms. We also received 143 open-ended comments and 86 location-specific comments, which were made through the online maps. I also took the feedback we received from the Bicycle Advisory Committee, the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and the Disability Advisory Commission, and expressed all those concerns that you all shared with me to our engineers to kind of lay the framework for what our project's going to be looking like. This is one of the questions we asked on our form, just to get an understanding of who was using the street and how they were using the street. And what we found is that most of the respondents, about 42% of them, walked or rolled along the street. The second largest category were those who were driving a personal vehicle at 33% of our respondents. After that, we had riding a bicycle along the street at 17%. We have other, which we don't really know what that is. It was left open, but no one really filled it out. But 4%, and then using a scooter, we had 2% at the lowest end. And what I've done is aggregate all the information here from the 3 street projects to just show you the general trend that we saw. And so when we asked how safe do you feel while traveling across the 3 street segments using the following types of transportation, respondents reported walking and biking generally feeling very unsafe. The second most comment was feeling unsafe. When riding a bike, most people felt unsafe. The second most felt very unsafe. While using a scooter, most felt unsafe. The second most felt unsafe. Or sorry, most felt very unsafe. The second most felt unsafe. And driving a personal vehicle, most felt unsafe, and some felt safe or neutral. And so generally what we heard across many of the questions we asked in the previous round or the first round of public engagement was that generally people felt unsafe or very unsafe using the streets across all modes of public transportation. And further questions that we asked in the feedback forms revealed that perceived speeding and other driver behaviors were behind the high percentage of people not feeling safe while walking or rolling down the street. Other themes that we heard just from the public in general was that speeding was perceived by many respondents to exist and make walking along the street unsafe. Limited sight lines and distance and parked cars around the intersections also made people feel unsafe. Most people put in a request for a sidewalk, and so we feel the need that to just inform everybody that even though we are pushing forward with the shared street pilot projects, the streets that are nominated to the Neighborhood Complete Streets program will always remain on our list for sidewalk improvements. They will never be removed, and then once a sidewalk is built, they will then be removed off the list. I just have to share with you that some of the challenges, like we mentioned before, in obtaining a sidewalk, another major one is getting an easement for a sidewalk. And sometimes this can take years. So we did want to find a solution in the meantime that would improve street conditions. Other people also asked for a one-way street conversion, and we had to push back on this one. We as the county feel that the safest condition on these narrow streets is to maintain two-way travel. And what this is, or what this does for us, is it creates a yield condition on the street where if you have two cars that are oncoming in the opposite direction, both of the cars must slow down, and this is what we like. They have to slow down. One car must yield to allow the other to pass. And so this action we've observed makes the street safer. It slows traffic down just a bit. And again, the pedestrians are the focal point. What I presented to the Disability Advisory Committee a couple months ago now was this initial stamp that staff had designed. It has this white border. The white border is retroreflective, meaning that at night, if a car's high beams were to flash on it, it would reflect the light back. Within the white circle is this orange circle, meant to be bright, easy to see, and create contrast between the pedestrian symbol and a bicycle symbol with the shared street logo underneath, all within that circle. The stamp, which is what this is, was intended to take up the entire width of the road, making it very obvious to drivers of the condition of the road. Staff presented this stamp to both to the fire department. The fire department enjoyed the stamp because for them, what this would allow them to do is understand that the condition of the street is different than most other streets within the county, and for them to signal to the fire department to move forward with caution down this street. The stamp has changed a little bit. What we found is that the circle, which was the last symbol that we shared, is more common in Europe, and it's not necessarily common in the United States. And the meaning of the circle is a little bit different in Europe than it is in the United States. In Europe, the circle is meant to represent, to indicate to drivers to proceed with caution or to convey information. In the United States, that's done with a diamond, which is what you see here. What we've done is we've taken the phrase shared street outside of the diamond or outside of the circle where it was originally, and it's now above and below the diamond. There's still the white retroreflective border around a terracotta background. And within that terracotta background is a pedestrian symbol and a bike symbol. What staff like about this much more than the circle is that it's elongated the entire stamp, which is a message in the road. to 32 feet, so making it almost impossible for a driver to miss. Again, the shared street will also be in a retroreflective material, so at nighttime, drivers will see this stamp. And in addition to the stamp will be the shared street sign, which we presented previously, and it's advising drivers to drive at 15 miles an hour rather than 25 miles an hour. And Karen, I do see your hand is up. Would you like to ask a
Yeah,
question?
I think the redesign is definitely an improvement. Did you change and intensify the terracotta color, or is that the same?
The terracotta color is the same, and we're really restricted to the colors that we can use to convey information within the county. So, we can't really use the red that's reserved for buses. We
I
can't
know.
use green. So this is
I-
what we're
I-
left with.
I was interested in the contrast ratio, right?
Okay.
Between the terracotta and the white, because every color has a number assigned. So there's just a best practice for color contrast. So I'd just be
Okay.
curious. It's the color saturation. Because for some reason, the terracotta with this layout is more prominent, but
Mhm.
I'd be very curious about what that contrast ratio is. I'm not suggesting you change the color at all. I just don't know if you could intensify it a little bit. Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
But
If
I
I can-
love the more elongated stamp. I think it's really great. Thank you.
I will. I'll get back to you with a number for the contrast ratio.
And I'm just wondering, just going off of that, have you talked to, for example, the blind and low vision community about, what amount of contrast would be good for them? That might be something that you might ask. We do have a blind person on our commission, but she's not here tonight. So I'm not sure what her comments might be, but.
Yeah, and Brian, that's what I'm talking about. I have a lot of experience with web design. So there's
Mhm.
contrast ratios, and it would apply for this also, right? Especially the visibility at night. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Alexa, if you could offline, perhaps send me a contact, or at least send to Anna or Courtney some contacts, and then maybe I can reach out and discuss that with them further. That'd be great.
Okay. Do we have your email in the copy of the presentation we're getting, or just to make
Yes.
sure? Okay.
Yeah, we'll
great.
have it. We'll have his contact information.
Great.
Thanks, Anna.
Sure. You're welcome.
So I think the last thing I want to say about this is that the stamp will also be designed to be fully prominent on the street. So it will be placed within parked cars. That way, if a car is parked on the street, they're not going to be covering any of the symbol or the stamp, I should say. What I have next are a couple of designs. I've placed the designs in this presentation for all of the streets. I don't want to stop and go through all of them. I just want to show you some of our more challenging intersections. That way, in your own time, you can review the full design. So we do have 3 pilot project locations. The first one that I'll introduce you to, I guess, is this South Lynn Street and 20th Street South. This is in the Aurora Highlands neighborhood and Arlington Ridge neighborhoods. This street is relatively calm compared to the other 3. So there is no additional design at this time. And that's something that should be stressed for this pilot project, is that it will be phased. We'll be constantly monitoring and evaluating how these new treatments work. And then as we identify issues or challenges, or we're not seeing driver behavior improving, we'll go back to the drawing board and rework the design and add additional treatments to get the street to work in a way that we would like it to work. So here what we have is we have the diamond. It says shared street, and below that again is the 15 mile per hour advisory speed limit. At this time, it can only be advisory. For a more permanent condition, we would have to go to the county board and seek that change, and that would be a white sign with a black background. And at that point, the police can enforce the speed limit. As a pilot, we can't do that yet. The second that you see on the page is the shared street, again with the stamp in the middle, and this is what that would look like. And then let's see, I'll show you here this concept design. This is from South Irving Street to South Highland Street. This is our second pilot project location. This is in the Bluemont neighborhood, so in North Arlington. No, I'm sorry. This is the wrong location. This is in the Douglas Park neighborhood. And this is 12th Street South and Highland Street, so not Irving Street. So what we have here is we received a lot of complaints at this intersection of South Highland Street and 12th Street South. People didn't feel like they were being seen by cars. And we also wanted to get cars to slow down through this intersection. Those are some of the top comments that we received. So what we did is created bulb outs and curb extensions around the corners to better align the traffic to drive safely through the intersection, but to put cars in a position where the pedestrians were more visible. Again, at the entrance to the shared street, we have the stamp and the advisory sign. And we've repeated that also at South Irving Street. So cars turning off of South Irving Street onto 12th Street South in either east or west directions, they'd see the stamp and the sign. At this intersection, we have a little bit more traffic volume, a little bit more speeds. So we want the stamp and sign to be placed a little bit more frequently just to catch the attention of drivers and to remind them that the condition is different than what they would expect elsewhere. A lot of people have been asking us for other treatments like speed humps and also for changes to the intersection of South Irving Street. These are things that we're going to keep in mind, again, as we monitor and evaluate the success of the project or look for any changes that might need to take place to kind of encourage that better driver behavior. We'll go back to those comments and look to make those additions into the street. Before we do any of that, we'll be messaging out to everybody. And then here at the final location, I need to change this title. But this is North Wakefield Street at the intersection of 7th Street North. This is in the Bluemont neighborhood. Again, this is a challenging intersection that many people brought our attention to. They felt that drivers are driving way too fast. From North Wakefield Street at Carlin Springs down to 7th Street is downhill, and then back up to Wilson Boulevard is uphill. We do have some visibility challenges, so again, we wanted to kind of reduce the distance, or sorry, reduce the travel lane width at the intersection to bring cars to the middle of the street, again, to make people more visible. And again, we have the shared street stamp at the entrance to the street, and then also a shared street sign reminding people of the speed limit, that 15-mile-per-hour speed limit. And those will be carried through again at the entrance to the street. This is Wilson Boulevard and North Wakefield Street. Again, this is where the shared street starts, and so we wanted to, again, just reinforce that condition to drivers, and again, with the shared street sign, and then the 15 miles per hour. And that's it. So if y'all have any questions regarding the project, you can ask now. Also, I have my email address. I'm the project manager for this. I also included Michelle Stafford. She's the program manager for the Neighborhood Complete Streets project. You can also reach out to her.
Thank you,
Can I ask
Brian.
a question?
Go ahead.
Could you explain where, again, the Bluemont where the Bluemont is, the Bluemont installation is, or is going to be, because I live up in that area.
Okay. The Bluemont project is from 7th Street North and Wilson Boulevard on North Wakefield Street. Do you know where that is?
Maybe. No. So where is that in relationship to the Sunrise, right in Manchester?
Oh, I'll have to look that up. So this location, it's near the Total Wine and More. And then you have the Memorial Home, which is on North Wakefield Street and Wilson Boulevard. and then also the post office. Let's see.
Well, 'cause the where I'm describing where the sunrise is, that to my knowledge is a also at an entrance to Bluemont Park. So
Let's see. Oh,
or
it's
or it's right near an entrance to Bluemont Park.
okay. So it is. It looks like it's about a mile west of the sunrise at Bluemont Park.
A mile west.
Yes, or sorry, a mile east of the Bluemont Park.
East
Uh,
or west?
East.
East would be towards Boston, and west would be towards
Yeah.
Seven Corners.
Exactly. Yep. So from the sunrise at Bluemont Park, you head east towards Ballston.
It's towards Boston, so that's east. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's why I was confused. Okay. I so this street is gonna this installation is gonna be with a bike lane.
No, there will be no bike lane.
There'll be no.
At this street location, we don't have the width to provide a bike lane.
I didn't think so. Okay.
No. And the only way we could get that is to remove parking. And that's not something we're trying to do here. Really, I
Yeah,
think
no, I
everyone,
wouldn't want it, frankly, particularly as you say, it's not a wide intersection, but I'm really concerned about the interference that interference that bike lanes represent for people with disabilities, including blind people like me, in being able to cross the street safely, as well as to be able to have a taxi or a paratransit vehicle be able to pull up and pick you up without your having to cross a bike lane to get that done, or even for a transit bus. So so even especially down there in at 12th Street South and in Crystal City, that's a real concern, having so many lanes. In fact, there was a recent article, I think it was in the Washington Post, or maybe it was on Greater Washington, I can't remember, regarding this whole situation, but it was in reference to installations in the district. So
thank you.
Doris, this is Alexa. I believe you might have just arrived. Karen and I had both brought up, I don't know if you've been able to see the design for this marker, but we were both wondering if the terracotta and white colors were of sufficient contrast. I don't know if you've been able to see the design. I know you're here on the phone right now, so not looking at it right now.
yeah, I mean, I think it's good to bring contrast and because that is a major feature of curb ramps that are accessible, and the various colorations that different localities and jurisdictions are using, because sometimes, for example, Arlington uses a lot of white or kind of white or off-white sidewalk, and the detectable warnings are in black, and you know, I definitely have some concerns in a variety of locations in the evenings, depending on the type of lighting that's used. The original design using yellow is frequently better, especially in evening situations. So so I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, I was late, Madam Chair. I'm sorry. I had problems dialing. Well, I was late from another meeting, but I had problems dialing the conference ID and getting through.
Well, we're glad to see you here now. Welcome.
Brian, this is Elizabeth Prio. I was interested in their results of all modes of transportation saying they felt unsafe. I imagine that was pretty discouraging, and I feel pretty discouraged about that. I mean, because Arlington wins these awards, you know, for being a walkable community and yada yada. So I mean, especially people feeling unsafe in their car. What is your, was this surprising to you? And what is the overall plan?
I don't feel discouraged. I do feel encouraged. I think the baseline in understanding how this project work has been set. And I think we've got a lot of room for improvement, but I think we're looking forward to making that improvement. Um, this is a balance. This is from people's perception, right? And this is a conversation that we've been having frequently off to the side about this project and about those conditions that do make people feel unsafe. A lot of it we feel does come from driver behavior, but then also how pedestrians position themselves or even cyclists position themselves on the street. There are a lot of opportunities where a pedestrian or a cyclist or someone who's rolling on the street can put themselves in what they think is a safe position, but really what they're doing is they're, let's say, perhaps hiding behind a car. So we did observe pedestrian behavior to see how they were walking in the street and where they were walking in the street. We found that those people who tend to, you know, kind of move in and out and between the cars to stay out of the street as much as possible were putting themselves in a position where the oncoming cars and traffic could not see them. And that's something that we want to try and change a little bit of the behavior of. Virginia law requires that people do stay as close to the sidewalk as or to the curb as possible. So we're trying to like walk this balance of changing behavior, but keeping everybody safe. Some of the other behaviors that make people feel unsafe are speeding. And we got a lot of comments in the Bluemont neighborhood of people feeling unsafe as people were turning off of Carlin Springs Road and on to North Wakefield Street. They were making that turn really fast, and so we want to try and slow that down. But then they also were under the impression that drivers were speeding down the hill, hitting 7th Street and speeding up the hill in order to make that green light before it would turn red because they don't like waiting at a red light.
Yeah.
And so we're really trying to change behaviors, but then also change perceptions. One thing that we noticed is that people think I went out to the streets and measured speeds with a speed gun, with a radar gun. And if anyone came across me and asked me what I was doing, I tell them I'm monitoring speeds. And so I gave them the opportunity to guess the speed of the car driving past. And many times the car driving past was going at the speed limit, but the guess was 32 miles, 33 or 34 miles an hour. And so the question of what is a safe speed and what is a perception of a safe speed has often come up, which is why we're recommending a speed reduction to 15 miles an hour, which is probably more appropriate for a place where pedestrians, bicyclists, people rolling, and people driving are all sharing that same space. And so what we're looking for as we go out and measure I guess, how these projects are working, we're going to be looking to see if drivers are slowing down. Are they going to be going 15 miles an hour? I don't know. Are they going to be going 20 miles an hour? I don't know. And we're going to be collecting information, not just, you know, from me going out and collecting speed data, but we're also going to be asking people, how does it feel? We'll be sending out feedback forms to the community to kind of get that input. And then with that information, we'll make adjustments to the street. We'll go back, modify the street to, again, maybe force drivers to go even slower. This could be with speed humps. This could be with more curb extensions. This can be with even diverters, kind of keeping traffic off of the street from some directions. So we're looking at everything. We really want this to work.
That's great, and thank you for the really thorough response. I have an unrelated question. This is looking at streets. Do you at all work on sidewalks as part of the Complete Street Initiative?
Yes, that's part of the Neighborhood Complete Streets program. There's also a couple of sidewalk projects through CPHD, the county's planning department too.
Because I mean, I see all these are things where you might be in the street, but of course, poor sidewalks force people into the street even more. And one of the things that I've thought about, that I've been on this commission for over 10 years, and I've never heard people from the county discuss curb cuts, and many of them are in such poor repair, even ones that are in brand new, because as I understand it, the county hired someone with poor concrete or something like that. And I was wondering, do you ever look at curb cuts separately? I was doubting it because the average person doesn't use a curb cut, but to me that is something that makes being a pedestrian difficult, because I never trust that a curb cut's going to be in good enough shape, So.
I do not work on that independently. What I can do is take your location down where you might find a curb cut that's unsafe, and I can pass that along. What I can suggest, just generally speaking, is that the county's Report a Problem platform is a really good way to also report unsafe curb cuts. Also, unsafe curb ramps. We have a transportation safety investigation drop-down menu. You can upload a picture, describe the condition that you're meeting, and then what the county will do is investigate that, and then incorporate it into our capital improvement projects budget. It's not a very fast process. There are a lot of locations that do need upgrades. And with changes to the recent law, it's really something that we're working through and working on. But the budget to get those built will need to be expanded.
Okay, yeah, I know of that place to report. That is what I do. But I was just interested about this project overall. So thank you.
Thank you.
I've used that reporting tool, and it does seem like it's very slow and very difficult to figure out, whose desk did this end up on, and, if there is a delay, is that because, it takes a certain amount of time for someone to get to it, or is that because it's no longer in the queue, or is that because, I had a couple of times where I was discussing a particular intersection and people kept thinking that I meant something other than what I actually marked on the map. So it took me several months to make sure that people were addressing that specific thing. So if you have any advice on, how to make sure that people fully understand what you're submitting and reply to it, I'd really appreciate that.
I'd recommend then a meeting with our Q Alert team. Those are our team that manages the Q Alert platform, which is the Report a Problem platform. It's something I just learned myself, and it was very useful.
Can you send me that contact information?
Yeah, I'll send along with the PowerPoint presentation. I'll copy Anna and Courtney and share the contact.
All right, thank you very much.
This is Doris. I wanted to ditto the last two comments, and I also wanted to kind of ask a question about like a neighborhood like Bluemont and Carlin Springs is bordering on another jurisdiction. It's right at the border of Fairfax County. So so our neighborhood, you know, you can walk a half block, even certainly a block, and you're in Fairfax, and vice versa, or you're in Arlington. And so, but we have to use those sidewalks and the curb ramps if they're there, or if they're going to be there, to get to the grocery store, the convenience store, the CVS, you know, walking, and so what I'm wondering is whether anybody is taking a look at those neighborhoods, but particularly up here, but I know that there are others, like in the Langston Boulevard corridor and other places, that where if you take a look at the neighborhood as a whole, you're going to have to cross into another jurisdiction, which might be using different standards, one way or the other, for building sidewalks and curb ramps, for example, and whether there's coordination, and if not, are we seeking funds, you know, from TPB, for example, down at COG, and the federal government to look into, you know, having a safe, accessible transition to community amenities where there's a border like that, because it's really bad up here. It right where I live, part of the street on Arlington, not Arlington Boulevard itself, but on the service road, in the path of travel to Seven Corners and Wilson, there are changes once you go over the borderline, and like right over the borderline going up the service road, which is the pedestrian travel up to Seven Corners, right in the middle of a block, you drop down from a sidewalk into nothing, except that once you get to a townhouse development, for example, then you have a new sidewalk, but there's no curb ramp to get back up on it or anything, and you have to be riding in a service road that has a lot of fast driving traffic. So, or, you know, in the path of travel to get up to Route 7 and or Patrick Henry. So, in the back neighborhood. So,
I'm not aware of any specific initiative to look at these places where, you know, our two jurisdictions meet. I am aware of a couple of different planning projects that do span kind of, I know we have Alexander, or the city of Alexandria. They're working on a King Street project. They've included Arlington County as one of their stakeholders in that project. And we have, I think, several projects with Alexandria City at the moment. And I think that's typically how we work together. We wait for the opportunity, or we wait for the capital improvement project to begin, and then we work with our cross-jurisdictional stakeholders as those projects come across our radar. Again, if you do need to highlight an area in particular that the county should focus, again, I'd highly recommend 311, the Report a Problem platform. Again, I'll make note to definitely send over the contact of the person who does manage that. And then also, again, Fairfax County, I believe, has their own reporting system tool. What we do with those is that we receive the complaints, and the more complaints we receive from different individuals and users, kind of elevates the urgency to address that need.
Well, like there are some neighbors, there were some paths of travel, for example, that are only in Arlington County. For example, if you live down in the neighborhood on the now where I'm talking about is Carlin Springs Road, and you live down in the neighborhood across from Kenmore, you know, you're going to have to come up to Carlin Springs, and if you're trying to get to the bus stop that goes down into Courthouse and Roslyn, the 4B bus stop, and or get off of it and returning, you know, there are super narrow streets with all kinds of light poles and stuff like that, and in addition to that, there's no curb ramp right at the bottom there so that you can get to, you know, back and forth across Carlin, at least not one that's safe that I can think of, to get back and forth between Kenmore and also the bus stop for the 4B. You know, if you're just coming from a couple of blocks up around, you know, 5th or 4th and down there near the park, you know what I'm talking about, right? And so the curb ramps are somewhat okay if you're on the Boston side of 50, but if you're on the south side, it's pretty bad. So I want to point that out. So it's not just border issues, it's also issues in the neighborhoods down there, particularly on the south side of 50.
Thank you.
And wasn't there something called Tiger grants that were available from the feds that made pathways to bus stops was one of the focuses or something?
I can't.
Sidewalk
I'm not.
pathways.
I'm not too sure about that. All right. All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
Right, let me just pull my agenda back up here. All right, so the next thing we have is the minutes. Can we do that virtually? Number one, and number two, do we have enough people? Anna?
Yeah, you can do it virtually if the meeting is all virtual, and I think you have to have 4 members. So I think you have 4. Is that correct?
Okay. And it looks like there were some pending edits from Doris. Doris, did you get those edits in?
You know, I looked at that and now I'm not sure which minutes. There were pending amendments to September in the December time frame, but I believe that I read the minutes and we adopted that. but if it was in reference to the January meeting, I reread the thing, and there were a number of like editorial, more like proofreading issues, but there were a number of them, and I would think that we could adopt that, and I wasn't able, when I was reviewing them about an hour and a half ago, I got a call from a consumer, so I wasn't able to go in there and chronicle all the detail. It could go, in my view, it could go forward, but I'm not sure whether those are the only 2 minutes that I saw that needed that. And what was it? It was February or March, which was a canceled meeting. Was it February?
So Doris,
Doris.
Doris, this is Karen. So the minutes were January 29th, and then the March meeting, we didn't have a quorum. So I think we had a couple of public comment or presentations. So I agree with you. My recollection for January 29th was they were really minor editorial comments. So I didn't see that the substance of the minutes really required changes.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I could see that was substantive was maybe putting in the text of the item for the that upcoming STAR.
It was the engagement session, right?
It said, it mentioned only 2 of the 4, and it was kind of in a shorthand way. If it was me, I just put the list of the 4 items that was going to be taken up.
That's my recollection also, that was just a little bit more detail was required. Did they have 4 stations or 4 areas they were going to focus on?
Right.
That's what I recall because I attended that.
So if we just approved them with the addition of those 4 areas and the editorial things that had to do with, like, sometimes sentences were ended abruptly without making them full sentences.
Right. I mean, I wonder if all we say is, Mr. Edwards provided clarification on the 4 topic areas for the engagement session or something.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Alexa?
That, unless I think he had a presentation, we could just, draw the four bullets out. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, I think if all we say is that, he expanded on 4 topic areas for the engagement session, see the presentation, and that's it.
Okay,
but
so
I mean, actually, in the minutes, I would actually like to see in like bullets about what the 4 areas were, because it's the minutes that the county board is going to see.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't have it in front. I don't have his presentation in front of me.
But I'm saying we've got it. Wouldn't Courtney have it in the record? So all she'd have to do is look at it.
She probably has it, because that's all I think we need from the January minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to
maybe just ask Courtney for clarification, approve the minutes, and then ask Courtney for clarification to insert whatever the 4 areas were.
Inclusion of the 4 areas, that's all.
Right.
Inclusion of the 4
Okay.
areas in the final minutes. That's all.
Okay, so the issue is just the 4 areas, or does anybody want to send the proofreading, or would y'all like me to do the proofreading? I'm just trying to figure out how we sort that out.
Yeah, if you don't mind looking at it.
The issue
Yeah.
was the issue was that the public had made comment that the issues that they were going to be getting input for at that public meeting, was a feedback session or whatever it was, because it was just like the WMATA feedback session on the Better Bus. That those 4 areas did not represent the issues of concern with current service delivery. That the
Right. So how do we want,
the coalition, the SOS coalition had brought to our attention, and it didn't, and there was concern that they weren't getting proper input. That was the big concern.
Yeah, Doris, I just found my notes. The 4 areas were travel zones, payment options. I wrote SD trips. I'm not sure what that means. And then potential new features.
Yeah, and all these are future. These represented future augmentations to the system.
Correct.
And not what the SOS group was concerned about.
Exactly. Just service standards, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's what we need to be telling in the minutes to the county board,
Okay,
on
so
behalf of our constituency, that the issues that we wanted raised were not being raised, and was really unfair to claim that this was outreach about concerns in the current service delivery system and the proposed changes to it, because these were really new topics.
So does anybody want to sum that up in a motion?
That's what was left out. That was my concern that night about that presentation of what they were going to do at that feedback session, because it had nothing to do with really it was supposed to be part of the outreach to get more input on concerns with current performance. And they were claiming it was it, but it wasn't really. So. But if we agree that that's the content that's left out, and we prove the minutes with that, the need for that content, then we can just go ahead, I think, right?
Okay, so how do we want to sum that up?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Because I'm looking at the minutes. So this says that it was a summary of Mr. Clinton Edwards' presentation. Attendees will provide feedback on features that they would like to see, right? Those who are not able to attend.
Future augmentations to the program.
So maybe that's the wording, right? Attendees will provide feedback on augmentation or on future features they would like to see. And then I think the rest is correct, i.e. track a ride, etc.
Well, I think that the commission raised, the point is the commission raised on behalf of consumers that the input that they plan to seek was not covering the areas that consumers.
Right, that the current standard of service, right?
Current performance operation and any changes that had been made immediately preceding in the fall. So it was supposed to be part of fall the fall
Right.
September survey, it was supposed to be an extension of the outreach done in September about proposals being made to change STAR at that time, and that's what we understood. The purpose of having that January outreach was supposed to be an extension of what was done in September.
Right.
So how do we want to
advertise.
reword what's there?
Yeah.
So
They
I
didn't
would, right. So I would recommend what we just said, that attendees will provide feedback on future features for
that
augmentation.
Arlington County staff indicated that they were seeking input from attendees at that forum on new initiatives that would augment the STAR
Okay.
program and not an extension of the outreach that we thought that they were going to do to get input on issue areas brought up in the summer of 23 and in meetings in the summer of 23 and in September, when proper outreach had not been done to allow for the participation in the survey done during September. Because that was the issue. We thought that forum was going to be a second option for people to reflect on proposals brought up in the summer and in September, and they weren't. So that should be enough verbiage on this recording, right?
Yeah.
So basically the idea is that we're moving that Courtney listen to the recording and add everything that Karen and Doris just said about that outreach. Because I'm trying to put it into a simple motion that we can pass or not. And
well, I think the motion is that we add a paragraph that begins with commissioners mentioned concerns regarding, and it's just what Doris said.
Right.
That
Okay,
the community feedback provided in the summer of 23 and in September was not incorporated into part of the opportunity for engagement.
Yeah.
Okay. And the idea is that Courtney should have enough information from this recording that she can change it easily, or would Anna be changing it? I'm not quite sure.
I think it's in the recording, and it would be inserted at the end of the sentence that talks about the engagement form.
The recording of this meeting is
right.
What we're saying.
Right.
Right. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't get a question from Courtney that's what in the world is this? And I'm trying to remember every word each of you said.
No, I think
that's all I'm trying to do.
I think it's fine. And Alexa, I'm looking at the minutes, and there's a sentence that ends, online participation will be open until February 14th. And then there's another paragraph that says commissioners mentioned concerns about advance notice not being provided.
Yes.
I would ask Courtney to insert our additional concern right before that, right? Commissioners mentioned concerns regarding, and that's what Doris just said, that the community feedback provided or community concerns about current service as discussed in the summer of 2023 was not incorporated as part of this focus area engagement session. And I think that'll be easy. I think it's only going to be a couple sentences. I would make a motion that that's what Courtney does, that she just inserts it based on the recording, a couple of sentences to capture that.
So if she writes the minutes for this meeting, right?
Who is
And
writing the
and
minutes for
then
this
then
meeting?
then if you listen to the recording of this meeting
Right.
and we're saying what we want to go into the January 29 minutes, I would do the minutes for this meeting first and then send it to us and get that, and then all she has to do is slice it into the January 29 meeting minutes.
Yes.
Anna, is Courtney writing the minutes for both of these meetings? Is that how it's working?
Yes, she will.
Okay. Okay, so she's gonna be watching this recording in any case.
She
Okay,
will, yeah.
okay. So,
And then
so we,
I would move unless we have specific comments on the January, February, and March and April minutes that we adopt anything that we haven't adopted before, minutes wise.
okay,
as-
okay.
I
so we've got
second
two
that
comments
motion.
here as a
Okay, okay,
package,
so
as
we've
a
got two
package,
motions.
instead of, because I noticed when I was reading when I was reading the minutes, there would be a vote. There were votes on a couple of sets of minutes, and one following the other, and they were kind of like almost identical. And I don't see why, if there's no specific substantive amendments, 2 minutes for like whatever it was, February, March, April, that we
Okay,
just
so,
adopt everything as a block in
okay.
one vote.
Okay, so let me put this into an order. So the first motion that we have on the table is the one to modify the January minutes, adding the concern about the
September
that
minutes.
yeah, the meeting, the way the meeting was presented. Did that motion also include specifying the 4 topics, or are we not looking at that any?
Well, okay, there's one meeting that we didn't have a quorum and that was missed. How do we document that? Anna, do you know, do we need to, if there wasn't a quorum and we couldn't do business, do we need to adopt any kind of minutes for those meetings?
Well, I don't think you would take minutes if there was no quorum. But I don't know if she took minutes or not for that.
She did, because I think we had public comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can we do these in some kind of an order? So do we have a second for the motion about changing the January minutes?
I second it.
I thought you were the one who proposed it, but
Second.
okay.
I'll
So,
second
so all in favor? I'm
Aye.
saying aye. Okay. Looks like that passes. Now the next one we have is approving all of the minutes that we have pending, including the January one with those changes. I believe that we had both a motion and a second for that. So shall we vote on that one? I'll vote aye.
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 Okay, and then what was the third thing?
Well, have
Doris,
we
Doris, what
adopted?
was,
We adopted the minutes for January with the edits that we just discussed now.
yes.
We already did
yes,
that, right? Okay.
we did
then
that.
The
We
second
did that.
package is what there's after that was February, March, and April, right?
Right.
And I wasn't here in April. I wasn't at that meeting because of a medical emergency, and so.
So
would
what
just
does
be
that mean? That means we have to separate it into two motions?
But what I'm asking is, because I don't think it had me noted in there as not being present. Was I?
Okay,
Maybe
so we need to add that you weren't present in April is what you're saying.
but I'm asking vote we just took that so there wasn't, in March, there was a scheduled meeting which we didn't have because there wasn't a quorum? And is that all we have to put in minutes? Or did we?
Do we care about the minutes that we got from Courtney, or are we good with them? I don't know whether we really have to get in.
We did get March minutes, yeah.
Didn't we? Let me make sure that I'm March 19 minute. Yes.
March is the one that we didn't have quorum, but we had public comment or a presentation.
Right.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that the motion that we just had was to approve all of those. Doris, did you vote on that one? I don't know that I heard you.
I thought I did.
Okay. So we've got all of that handled, I think. Okay. Did we have something? Yeah. Did we have something else? I think there was something we brought up, but I can't remember what the motion was regarding it.
I don't think so.
Okay. So if we don't have more, then the next thing we have is my chair report. And really the only thing that I have is that I still haven't heard back. I don't know, Anna, if you might have something for this meeting, but I recall that we were told by Matt and Graham that there was some sort of a statute that they were following regarding the sounds at the crosswalks. And I had asked them to put that in writing and give it to me, and I haven't gotten it yet. Anna, did you have any news on that, or should I follow up with Courtney?
We can follow up with Courtney. I have not heard anything about that, but we can certainly follow up with Courtney in the board office.
Okay, and the other thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that because I work nights for my new job, I unfortunately had to resign from the Transit Advisory Committee and the Accessibility Subcommittee. So I am on neither of those now. So if we want to do STAR related things, we can perhaps partner with the people who are on those committees, but I no longer am. Or if we want to do things ourselves, we can do that. Roseanne Ashby has been very interested in the STAR stuff and is on the accessibility subcommittee now. So, you know, I can definitely communicate with her, but we were not able to change those Tuesday meetings, and I cannot get off from work on Tuesday. So I unfortunately can't do that stuff anymore. I do hope that we will remain engaged in the STAR issues because as I believe we have seen from, you know, some of the engagement events, there's been, you know, quite a lot of miscommunication, perhaps strategic miscommunication, perhaps unintentional miscommunication. I have my own opinions on that, but I do think that, you know, we should keep our eyes on it as we can. And I will try to keep in communication with Roseanne just to have a sense of kind of where that group and that subcommittee are going with things. And if there's anything that we, you know, need to keep our eyes on. But I am officially no longer on either one. So that's my liaison report. I'm out of here. All right. Doris, did you have any liaison reports?
First is that there was not a meeting of the Housing Commission in March. And then secondly, that I was not able, again, because of a personal medical emergency, that to go to the meeting in April, but they did not they didn't have presentations on housing, new housing developments or site plans, and it was mainly internal stuff that didn't require any action. So I wasn't at that meeting, and then going on to WMATA, that the big thing is that back there in March, and in the meeting minutes for March, there was a summary of what I said about needing to testify at WMATA hearings and testify about the need for full funding of WMATA, and that although the big issue was that Metro Bus and Metro Rail could face cutbacks in service based on the budget shortfall of $750 million, that it would also apply to people who used STAR and or Metro Access, and it was kind of not summarized correctly in that way. The issue was that the county needed to we needed to encourage the county to fully fund in its FY25 budget, fully fund Metro Bus and Rail service, so that there would be no impact, one on bus riders, fixed route riders, but also no impact on, so to prevent any impacts on those who rode Metro Access about where they could go. So that wasn't really, what I wanted to say was, we now know, as an update, that the new state budget for the moment will fully fund Metro, and that COG is working on a regional funding scheme that they want to get adopted by the 3 states involved in the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, so that is something to be watching now. And then there are going to be some changes in bus routes and services, as well as Metro Access, coming up in July, and we should be watching for that and any impact it might have on Arlingtonians. And that's what they've been discussing mainly at the WMATA meetings. I do want to note for everyone here that with only 2 days notice, the WMATA had a 30th anniversary celebration of the creation of Metro Access in accordance with the ADA requirement for ADA paratransit. And it was only 2 days notice for the members of the WMATA Accessibility Advisory Committee itself. So last week they had this celebration on Thursday, but the consumer, the consumer base, the people with disabilities, the disability community in Maryland, DC, and Virginia were not informed or invited to that anniversary, and that, I feel that we should be contacting at least our member of the WMATA board and expressing disappointment that Metro Access riders throughout the region weren't involved in and invited to an anniversary and milestone that's so important to all.
Well, was anybody invited with more than 2 days notice? Because maybe they just didn't invite anybody with more than 2 days notice, and then they just wasted money.
The statement was made a week ago this past Monday, so it was a week ago today. That when I followed up on it and asked about it, I was told that the anniversary, it was a cake cutting down there at WMATA headquarters, and I assume the elected officials were there, was only for members of the AAC.
AAC.
And I think that, I personally think from an advocacy and education standpoint, that even if it would have been later than the actual day of the anniversary, that they should have invited the community, even if it was at a WMATA board meeting. So, they kind of placed it down on the public agenda. That's my feeling. You all agree with that, but I'm just telling you what happened, and I was kind of very, and I said so in an email. I was very, very disappointed to see that kind of got shoved in a back closet. I mean, maybe you guys don't feel that way. That's the way I feel it.
Yeah, it seems like there could have been more notice from what you describe. And, especially if they're trying to celebrate something, they should really invite the community. I think you're making perfect sense to me.
Sounds like to me that the AAC just wanted free cake.
But see, what they came back and said was that it was only for the members of the AAC, and that secondly, I guess, I mean, they didn't tell anybody about it in advance. And I will say to you that for as long ago as at least a year ago, I had mentioned that the 30th anniversary of the creation of Metro Access was coming up, and it would be a good opportunity to highlight the ADA and the certainly good effect for the community of having ADA paratransit, because without that, without the ADA requiring that, people who couldn't use fixed route would still not have a way of getting out and about just like anybody else.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they missed an opportunity to have people talk about how important it is. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, same.
Because obviously they don't care if people get a chance to say how important it is.
Oh, and the other background part is that recently, within this year or at the end of last year, they have moved to a reorganization down at WMATA that places the ADA office under the oversight and management of a new section on the organizational chart that is for what is it called? I'll have to get you all the name of it, but it's like something like maintenance and security or safety or whatever, it goes under that rather than civil rights anymore.
Mm,
So it doesn't have the same level of direct communication with headed by an assistant general manager that it used to have.
Are you talking this is Arlington County or this is someplace else?
WMATA, right?
WMATA.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a WMATA issue, right? So
Right, okay, I
you
just
know,
wasn't sure it was
yeah.
WMATA, okay.
And I was hoping certainly that the issue of you know, I would have hoped that it would have been under equity and civil rights and aligned there, and it seems to have been moved to a place that's so accessibility of transit facilities, programs, and resources, as well as the Metro Access program, you know, aren't aligned higher in the organizational chart as they had been. And I
So
just
what's
don't-
under civil rights? What do they consider civil rights then if they left that out?
Well, there is an equity program, but I'd have to look about where it is right now. So, but nonetheless, you know, our civil, so it's, you know, because there are civil rights requirements under the Federal Transit Act, and you know, the civil rights law requirements, and the I'm trying to think of the section number, and it's escaping me. Title VI, I think, under transit equity. So that has been at a higher level in the organization of WMATA, but now it seems like disability programs are just looked at as, and access isn't being looked at in the same way. At least that's the feeling that I get. So I wanted to bring that to y'all's attention, and we can deal with it if we want to, and maybe if we need to wait and write some kind of communication with the county board about that, and wait for approving that at the next meeting or something, that's fine. I just wanted to bring it.
I trust you on this. I would be interested to see if, I mean, under civil rights, they have basic thing about non-discrimination against people with disabilities and things like that, because that would encompass this. It doesn't highlight the importance of paratransit, but what it does do is if they mention disability as part of civil rights in the civil rights section, it mentions disability in 2 sections instead of just 1. So that could be a positive.
Right.
I don't know.
Because the ADA said that what the ADA said was this is not just any old paratransit program, you know, a human service paratransit program or medical transportation. This is what we're talking about here is access to public transit paid for with public funds.
Right. But I mean, if they put the word disability and disability services and supports in the civil rights section, then it does cover that. So, I mean, I don't know why they moved it. I'm suspicious just like you, but I'm not raring to write a letter until I know whether they completely wiped out the word disability in the civil rights section.
The county board and the county board's Arlington County boards. I think it's our county representative to the WMATA board is an alternate, but nonetheless, just noting for the county board that making sure they know that the ADA is about access to public facilities, and that's what that's what the program, the ADA program was and how it was treated, and they've gone through a new reorganization, and it seems to be put in a place dealing with, operational issues and not necessarily concerned with making sure that new facilities, new programs, new trains, new stations are fully accessible and compliant with the civil rights laws. So that's what I want to tell the county board. I think that the county board needs to know, and that if they want to take that issue to the WMATA board, we're recommending.
Well, they might have the same question I do. So before you write, you might want to check and see what it says under the civil rights section. That's all. That's just a suggestion. I have a feeling you're absolutely right. I'm just saying, just might want to, try to assume what they'll argue and have the answer ready.
I just think what happened with the Metro Access anniversary is emblematic of that, and we have now a 35th anniversary of the ADA coming up next year. How is that going to be handled as far as, our communities celebrating the changes that have been made in public facilities?
Alexa, what is so funny?
Oh, I'm just laughing at, how are they going to handle it? Questionably? I'm going to go out on a limb and say questionably.
Well, they just had some anniversary. I know they asked me to speak at it. It was held outside. There were like a couple disability advocates come. I have a report.
Okay.
I attend this Marcus Alert Committee, which was a committee that was designed to look at Arlington County procedures when somebody calls to report a mental health crisis, and to put in procedures so that they actually get a good a result where they might get actual mental health support, as opposed to police officers that will come and maybe escalate it higher, if not cause death.
Right.
And they have finalized their report. We've met for 2 years. They finalized their report, meaning that they have an actual procedure they'll use. My continued concern about it is that it still says that police will come at the same time if there is known to be a weapon involved, and there's no way of ensuring that the police wait until the trained mental health officer gets there. So basically, they're saying we're going to train a certain number of mental health police officers to have this sensitivity, and it appears that a great number are asking to be trained. So that's terrific. But there's no stopgap if there happens to not be a mental health professional. And I'm not sure that just because there's a weapon, I mentioned my concerns multiple times and it didn't fly. So it is what it is. But that is my continued concern, is that they still have not just the mental health person come up, but the police officer come up. And I don't see anything in there that says ensure that the police officer doesn't barge in before the mental health professional. But the way it's written, it all looks perfect. Like it's going to work just perfectly.
Can you link a copy of what they voted on so I can see the exact wording?
Yeah, sure. They do have a Marcus Alert section on the website, but I would try to pull it up in the rest of this meeting. I'll try to do that. I'm very, very bad at doing two things at once, but I will see.
Okay, if you want to
Yeah.
email it to Courtney, I'm sure she could email
Yeah,
it to me
sure.
also.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely can understand where your concern is coming from.
Yeah,
I think I can understand their concern too, but it seems like there should be a
absolutely.
better way to handle that.
Yeah, and I have to say,
Nonetheless.
the commission was very well run. They had excellent representation from so many different groups, DD groups, autism groups, our group. I mean, I was really impressed with the group. But whether or not, but I don't know that all of the comments that were made were actually responded to. It was sort of like we have this great group. They can make the comments they want. So.
So all the comments were taken, but you're not sure you feel all the comments were addressed.
I'm not certain, but I again, it looks good on paper and hopefully it'll work. And the positive thing is a lot of people were asking to be trained, and they do have this new policy in place. And as you said, I could see why they're stubborn on this issue, because if a weapon's involved, they have to look at the safety of their officers.
Right.
So
And I see, Karen, that you put something about the Barcroft project in the chat. Was there also a liaison report on that, or?
Yeah, I have a liaison report. So I did, Elizabeth, I found the link to the Marcus alert and from the
Okay.
county website, and I put it in the chat.
Wow, you are fast. See, that's terrific.
Thanks.
Yes, she is fast. I'm looking at it right
So,
now.
I have served, this is mostly for Emma. I have served as the Disability Advisory Commission representative on, hold your breath, it's pretty long, on the Barcroft Land Use Analysis Expanded Form-Based Code Advisory Group. And the Barcroft site is a historic housing complex of garden apartments built after World War II that have for many, many years provided affordable housing for many, many residents in Arlington. It's amazing how many people that you meet who say, I lived there many years ago. So obviously affordable housing is a concern in our county. The site, the complex of 1,300 affordable units was sold to a developer. The county was very interested in maintaining affordable units. So the county and Amazon each came up with a loan for the developer, Jer Lynch, for the project. And it's being called a once in a century opportunity to redevelop a really significant site. So obviously keen community interest, neighborhood advisory groups, groups like ours, many, many groups. So this advisory group was formed in January with representatives from 30 groups, and there were three purposes. So it was to look at just the form-based code in the county and all of the policy, and was it going to help the county address the goals of maintaining affordable housing and approving going from 1,300 units to 3,000 on the existing site. The other purpose of the advisory group was to have stakeholder groups such as DAC provide input, and I think most importantly, engage the residents. And so we began meeting in January. They had 4 topics that they asked us to address. It was green spaces, it was transit, it was the existing buildings, and I cannot recall the other one. There was not an explicit topic around accessibility, but at each of the sessions, there were many opportunities to weigh in on accessibility. And there were other advocates for accessibility on these meetings, including Pan Van Hine from the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So we had our last meeting last week, and all of the recommendations from the 30 groups have been taken in. The developer has agreed based on the input to make some changes to their plans. There's still a long road ahead. So the form-based code is going to need to have some revisions. There's some other revisions. I was away for the April meeting. I don't know, Alexa, did anybody on this committee attend? Because I don't know if anybody was able to attend the April meeting. And in my absence, there was a community open house, but there also was a survey. And the results of the survey, they broke out between the residents and everybody else who responded. And many of those residents, they run their businesses and they have business service, business vehicles. If you drive in that neighborhood, you will see trucks for electricians and house cleaners and Uber drivers and cab drivers, and the list goes on. So they're very concerned. Obviously, they've been told for 99 years there will be a same number of affordable units for same 60% of adjusted mean income. But their concerns are they have a lot of green space. They want the green space maintained, but they are really, really concerned about parking. And that came up with a representative from the Barcroft community in the meeting. And I'm raising it because right now, phases of the existing garden units, they've started the renovations. And so they're renovating what's called phase 1, and there's no accessible units to the best of my understanding. When they begin the phase 2 renovations, they're going to add a couple of accessible units. But I think what's kind of critical for our committee is the developer has agreed to have 10% of overall units be accessible. So that's 10% of 3,000, which is great. But there's a lot of concerns about what does that mean in terms of where those accessible units, where will they be? Will they be far from parking, surface level parking for these folks who are going to run their businesses? And the topography of this site is very challenging. It has a lot of ups and downs. And the county even made one of the county's representatives even made a statement. Let me see if I can find it. I actually wrote it down. Basically, making a comment just that everybody knows it's going to be really challenging to make all those pathways accessible. So the discussions over accessibility are certainly not over. And so the next steps are the counties agreed that the form-based code and a couple of master plans need to be looked at. And so the developer has a long path ahead. The county will advertise that they're going to be making some of these policy changes, and it'll be at least 6 months. I mean, development will not begin for some time. But I think it's really imperative that our commission is still active and involved, even though we met for the last time last week. And then I wanted to show you all, can I share my screen? Let's see, I can't see. Give me 1 second.
I have a share. I don't know if everybody does.
I thought I did. I have a share button. Is it going to let me share though? Hold on. I think so. Let's see. I wanted to just show you. Yeah, it may not be letting me. I was a little concerned because at this meeting, the county representatives announced that they had an upcoming public meeting schedule and we were not included. So they're going to go to the Long Range Planning Committee. They're going to go to Historical Affairs in June, Parks and Recreation Commission, Planning Commission, Housing Commission. I hope I didn't stick my neck out, but that was my recommendation, that they come and brief our committee, our commission, and there were some other committees and commissions that asked for the same thing. But what I did is in the chat, the link is for the overarching project. And then the presentation that summed up just about all of our deliberations and included this schedule of the meetings that they're going to be going to, it's all in this link. And if you just go down to the last meeting that was last week, that whole presentation is there. I think we have to be really vigilant about it. I mean, I feel like the developer and the county are saying, isn't it wonderful? 10% of the units are going to be accessible. But if for the folks that are in the affordable units, it's not clear. They're building a new amenity center, and there's an amenity center for the affordable side, but it sounds like there's going to be an amenity center for the full market rate. And then what happens if most of the accessible units are in the full market rate, but set aside as affordable housing? It almost seems like it's very siloed. And I understand that renovating and redoing in the current garden apartments, it's probably not realistic in terms of accessible units, but it's really an issue of equity. Like if you're living in an accessible unit in the new buildings that are going to range from like 3 to 10 stories, if you're in an accessible unit, might you be told you can't use the amenities because you qualify for low-income housing? So I just wanted to bring that all to your attention. And they're cutting the number of vehicles, right, per unit. So if you're going to stay in the historic side that's being renovated, it's basically 1 vehicle per unit. But if you move into the market rate side, it's like 0.85. So that's a huge equity issue. It's not really an accessibility issue, but it's an equity issue for the folks that run their Uber and painting and electrical business and have their vehicles. So, yeah. So, Madam Chair, if you would like them to come and speak at our June 17th meeting, I'm happy to reach out and ask. You can, as the representative, if you just shoot me an email and just say, could you reach out to Olivia Sontag, and I can do it, and I can copy you and just say that we met, and
all right. I will send you an email tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think that
and I'll
is a good
take care
idea.
of that.
All right.
But,
Excellent.
I feel like there's an opportunity, right? If they're going to put in like 10% of 3,000 units. Wow.
Yeah, that does seem like an opportunity where we want to, make sure that we have a voice. I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Could I?
So, go ahead, Doris.
Yeah. These actually are kind of 2 separate things. First, I want to say that that I absolutely agree that this work group and the staff in it should be invited to this commission. Absolutely. And so I join as the liaison to the Housing Commission, which is monitoring the Barcroft development. In urging you to have them come and present to us, not just once, but as part of the process. And then secondly, I do want to say that as they go through with renovations and redevelopment, including building the new building residential building and the amenities center. They do. There is an extensive opportunity to comment and get the reactions of the developers in the site plan review process.
Right.
Related to housing, and those proposals, the proposal for the site plan application will go through each phase will go through the Housing Commission and the Planning Commission, and then again at the county board level. So, but specifically regarding accessibility of the buildings, including the number of accessible, affordable, and market rate units are discussed as the site plan is going through, each of the site plans is going through the process. And we should want them, you know, at our meetings. They began with this phase 1, which is of the old garden apartments.
Right.
And we need to remember that those old garden apartments, they're only being renovated. The units
Right.
are being renovated. And there is no requirement under the Federal Fair Housing Act amendments of 1988 for accessible units, but they are, because we have pushed at the Housing Commission for them to include as many bump outs as they can. We've also raised the issue that, you know, it's a large property and it's on a very steep incline, and some of the green portions of the property that are used as common areas and where they hold various community activities, at least in the past, and in fact the path of travel from some of those older units to the new swimming pool that they're and community
Right.
center that they're building are not accessible, and the feedback to the Housing Commission has been, you know, that the developer is doing everything that they can, but some of the existing pathways are too steep and you know, cannot be redeveloped. So I think it's important for us to make them fully accessible, you know, with a slope that's compliant. So that's one thing, and then there's parking all over the place, but they don't have to go back in necessarily and redeveloping that. So my understanding of the requirement for a lower ratio of parking units has to do with the fact that the development is on fixed route transit, and there's a policy countywide that was developed actually, and we did have some input into that, although I don't think they were listening all that well, regarding reduced ratios of parking, residential parking, when you're near, depending on what you're near. That's certainly not near a subway, so it shouldn't be the lowest. And I think you said it was 0.8 or something like that.
I think it's 0.85, and that was the rationale, Doris,
But
they
some
provided.
of the properties countywide, like up in the Boston area and such, are down as low as 0.4.
Mhm.
and that being that, you know, if they're on a transit line, I mean a subway transit line, that it's even less. So that's a whole issue with that plan about how it's adopted, and although we didn't necessarily agree with reducing that percentage and not providing adequate accessible spaces and spaces for personal assistance and such, that that they just went ahead with that, and the Housing Commission's Tools and Trends Committee is another place to at least bring some comment to, because we have that opportunity to come as public comment and start the discussion, and or at least doing it in writing. But over there at Barcroft, I think the parking ratio, as I understand how that policy is applied, is only for the new building and not the garden properties. Not the garden property. Because my understanding is it's for underground garages in new developments. But anyway, we should get all those questions
Yeah.
clarified
So
for us when we have them come. So I'm documenting some of that for the minutes.
okay, so Alexa, if you don't mind, if you reach out and ask me, I'll take care of it tomorrow. I have the
Yes,
contact.
I will.
I have two other quick updates that are actually not related to Barcroft, but one is the library is currently soliciting input on the future of libraries in Arlington. And it's a survey. I think the survey was accessible when I did the survey. I couldn't find fault with it. I find fault with most surveys, as Doris knows. And it asked you to, it put out potential focus areas for the library for the future, and it just asked you to give a rating, and then there was an opportunity for some open-ended feedback. So I put in some comments around accessible events and having ASL interpreters on site without people having to ask for them. And so if you have the opportunity, I just put the link in the chat for the survey, and they're having an event tomorrow night to have the community come in and just talk about these. I think there are 12 focus areas. So there's one thing. And then Elizabeth, to go back to your point about some of the mental health topics, I was a volunteer Saturday at the Arlington Unites conference. So it was sponsored by the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families. And so it was to bring together many, many community organizations, including Marcus Alert and harm reduction and all kinds of county services, and to really focus on what can we do as a community, and using the adverse childhood events model to, if you're familiar with that, to use that as an indicator of just some potential challenges. And I was able to just talk to some of the folks there. So it was really a good opportunity, but you'll be hearing more in the community about Arlington Unites, and there might be a place for our commission to be involved. I don't know what it would be at this point, but it's really quite a robust effort that's going to be kicked off. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. And was there one more, Karen, or?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
It's 8:59. I'm done.
Yes, yes. Anybody else have any last comments very quickly?
I just wanted to say that I do have the draft quote final plan. It's not on the site yet, so what I can do is I'll send it to Courtney, because you can see it's very clear as to what they'll do when they say there's a safety interested in
All
the
right,
language.
all right. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank
Draft
you,
final
Emma.
plan for what?
I was going to say thank you, Emma, for posting the CDC. Is that the study or info on ACEs or?
Yeah, just some basic info. I feel like it's good to have. Useful topic.
Doris, it is 9 o'clock. Did you have a last comment? I couldn't quite hear you.
I didn't understand what comments on what draft plan.
Oh, I'm not asking for comments. This is nothing formal that we have to do. It has to do with the Marcus alert where I was talking about earlier, where they decide when somebody says they're in a mental health crisis, when they will come just with mental health.
Okay, so it's a mental health crisis. Okay, okay.
Exactly.
That's great. That's what I was confused. Okay.
Okay.
And the only thing that I would say with regard to the library business is that I think it would be great to have on site ASL interpreters, but then on the other hand, people, there are different kinds of interpreters, and if you don't have the right one there, I mean, it is a kind of an individual request kind of thing. But what isn't an individual request is facilities at the library that make library materials accessible. And what I mean by that is that they actually used to have an assistive technology room at Central Library with video magnifiers for people who needed to, if they wanted to read something at the library or do some research or the things that people do at libraries, and utilize and could utilize a video magnifier or could utilize a Kurzweil reader type machine, and that would on the spot turn print into speech. They used to have such a room, but they got rid of it, and I'm not sure how well they were maintaining it. And so that would, I think, be something that would be important for us to be asking them to restore. And also they have, the big meeting room in the back, the big it's a meeting room, and where they have all kinds of programs, and I think it has a relatively old assisted listening system, and I think they should be upgrading accessibility features like that. So maybe it would be nice to have them come during this year and tell us how that library and the other branch libraries like in Shirlington and up in Westover and such, how they're making those facilities accessible, how they are accessible now, and how they're upgrading them to make them more accessible and available.
That is a good idea. That is a good idea. I think we should ask to have them by at some point too. Any last comments, or can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks so
You
much.
too.
All right. Thank you for stopping by, Emma, and nice to see all of y'all as usual. See you
Thank
next
you
month.
for having me.
Thanks.